All right. It is Friday, May 21st, 2021. And so I'm doing this a little bit early. Sorry, there's a band in the background as usual. Hopefully they don't DMCA me somehow because they're playing covers. It's an 80s cover band. Welcome to Dropping in a Pipeline Audio. This is number 117. Fletchers back or something. So let me get into what we're doing right away. Let me just make sure that, unlike last week, that this thing's actually online. Looks okay. Dashboard looks good. Streaming monitor looks good. Hopefully the audio is okay out there. Feel free to type in the chat wherever you're listening at. And I'm doing this a little bit early because tomorrow is the Bike Factory ride out. And I want to be able to go ride in that and not worry about it. So, first thing this week, the forums are exploding with quad cortex cultists. I think it's kind of like a special kind of sommelier or pedal cultist. So much hype around this neural DSP stuff. I've tried the plugins. The plugins were okay. They weren't like, to me, they didn't seem so much better than anything else. I still use bias. I know a lot of you guys hate that thing, but I get the sounds I want out of it mostly. I didn't hear anything super special about neural that really lived up to all the hype. Remember a couple of years ago, the Quad Cortex was on our Vaporware watch, but it's selling. And the thing is, everybody's wondering, hey, what can I do to get rid of my inferior gear so I can own one of these, buy one of these Quad Cortexes? And depending on what gear you have, like, like the Helix and things like that, they come with expression pedals built in. To me, that's pretty important. You can plug in expression pedals to the Quad Cortex, but it doesn't have them on there as far as I know, unless there's a different version than what I was shown. Is the DSP better? I don't know. There were a couple videos up where people were doing ABX tests between I think it was like Amplitude and Quad Cortex and Line 6 stuff. And people ended up liking what they liked. The Quad Cortex was definitely not the clear winner in that thing. So it's just a weird thing that just how hard the hype will affect people. It was really... for most people, they haven't heard this thing yet, except for in demo videos and whatever. Sorry. Please don't DMCA me for this. There's a cover band in the background. Sorry about that. But yeah, most of the people haven't heard this thing, and they just have to have it because they saw a bunch of hype. And this was happening with the plugins too. Like, I tried their plugins. There's nothing... I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but they didn't have the basics. Like, each one had its own set of effects. Like, where's the harmonizer? Where's the auto wah and all that kind of stuff? I didn't really see much value in there compared to like Amplitude or Bias. I don't know if it's just me doing it wrong, but I never really got a distorted guitar sound anyway out of Amplitude that I really like. So, I think these things are kind of personal, who likes what, but it's just hard to say. It's just crazy how much hype is built in, is really what I'm saying. It's just I don't think you need to kill yourself to go get this thing. If you have one that you like, I'm sure it's still good, It's just hype. We always talk about hype on here, and I try not to be so crazy negative on there lately, but let's see what else we got. This was a interesting post here, or interesting to me. I don't know if it's gonna be interesting to you. It was on TGP and the gear page. If you don't go there, it says, which combination leads to better guitar recordings? Cheap interface, expensive mic, or expensive interface, cheap mic? So on this show, we've done extensive testing on the interfaces, and like it or not, I haven't heard. I mean, you hear a bunch of God of the gaps arguments, but nothing really convincing. Every time we measure, even the cheapest, crappiest interfaces work pretty good, especially for something as loud as a guitar amp recording. You don't need much mic preamp gain at all, and so that's not going to be a factor. Even if they had the non-linear noise thing that people keep talking about, why you need cloud lifters and things like that. Hint: you don't need a cloud lifter, but even if that was true, guitar amp is so loud you would never need to get into that zone. You're probably gonna be using the pad, honestly, if you're doing like a really loud 4x12. So we know that the cheap interface or the expensive interface, I'm sorry guys, it's not going to make a difference. The reason I pay more for the RME stuff is because I want better drivers. It's not for better sound. You can actually go to my page, pipelineaudio.net, look at the real world gear measurements or whatever I called it, and you can look at the different interfaces, and they are, for the most part, they're ruler flat and not noisy, not distorted, at least anything modern and newish, decent, usable. The other part about an expensive mic or a cheap mic, what do you probably the favorite before this whole, again, hype, before this fad where everybody parrots the way they parrot the SM7 on all the forums nowadays, before the fad of parroting Royer 121 or whatever, it was very common, including my hero Bill Matoyer, would take two SM57s and stick them on guitar cabinets. The Friedman technique, whatever, that's two 57s usually, right? So I think cheap interface, cheap mic is probably going to be, unless you consider the 57 expensive. I guess you could, it's still $100 or whatever, but for the most part, I think that's what people would consider a cheaper mic. So let me read the original post. And hi guys, I currently use a Steinberg UR22 interface and a Sennheiser E906 or SM57 for my guitar recordings. I'm currently thinking about either investing in a more expensive interface like the Apollo Twin Duo or in a more expensive microphone like the Royer 121 or M160. Which factor is, in your opinion, more important in the signal chain of guitar recording, the interface or the mic? Which combination would you choose out of cheap interface, expensive mic, or expensive interface, cheap mic? I'd stay away from the Royer 121, honestly. This is a good mic, or the M160 is the buyer. The 57, if you can't get a good sound out of a 57, you need to rewrite your song. There's never been a song where you're like, oh man, that sucks. That song was recorded with the 57 on that guitar. Go figure it out. If it's not gonna, I don't trust the Apollo Twin because I don't trust the Universal Audio stuff. I know people say they've come leaps and bounds from where they used to be, so it's probably fine. But the Steinberg UR22, I think, uses the Steinberg Yamaha driver, which is decent. I have that in my round trip latency roundup chart. Let's see. So if this guy's saying if it's about sound quality, so here's some of the answers here. If it's about sound quality, mic wins every time. However, it's not that easy. Any interface from any major brand made today will have good enough sound quality to make solid recordings, but it needs to have the preamp gain range and headphone output specs to match the stuff you're plugging into it. Of the things that concern me when buying an interface, sound quality just isn't that high on the list. And that's true. I did hear about some people, like they say their headphones aren't loud enough or something. And then other people talk about how good headphone amps are or something, but I don't really know. I don't care. And I don't think that the preamp gain range matters at all when you're talking about recording, especially for the most part, they're probably going to be recording distorted electric guitar or electric guitar in general. You don't need to worry about your preamp gain range unless you don't have enough padding. You're not going to need to turn it up to that magical place. So we disproved the myth anyway, that there wasn't this spot on the mic preamps as you turned it up where the noise went up in a non-linear fashion compared to the the gain, unless you actually do go nonlinear on the gain itself. But there was that myth that 3/4 up the mic preamp was way noisier than lower down on the thing, and it's noisier, but then the signal's higher at the same time. It just matches until you distort something. If you're clipping, sure, the noise is going to go up and the peak output is not going to go any higher. So here's an answer that may have been true 30 years ago. So he says, just about every interface on the market today has decent preamps. The real upgrade is in the converter section. I don't think so. How much more ruler flat, how much less noise, how much less distortion do you have to get than pretty much the cheapest converters out there right now? Here's somebody else. So SWS1, I don't know if this is Standing Water Studios. I don't think so. He says, recording technique is far, far more important than either of these, but I know that wasn't one of your options. I would choose having multiple mics as more powerful. You can do so much with blending mics or combining direct sound with the room sound. I say that too. Your recording technique, but I'd just rather you write a good song. I don't care how badly you record a good song. It's still going to beat a well-recorded crap song for the most part. So here's another guy who says, I will say that when recording acoustic instruments, the microphone is going to make a big difference versus the average pre, and the AD conversion will make a big difference. How's the AD conversion going to make a big difference when the mic pre or when the interface doesn't make a difference? I don't think so. I think the analog to digital converters are about the same here. Let's see what else. The microphones you use will have the most impact on the sound. The mic preamps built in the interfaces are mostly transparent. Yep. Let's see. And here's somebody else. Even super great high-end preamps don't really have that big an impact on single track sound unless you're going wild and using its overdrive character. Right. But how many people are really, how many times do we have to ask this question? How many people are operating their mic preamps in the nonlinear range? Back in the day, the guys who made these things did not want you doing that. They didn't have master volumes on them, right? You had your mic preamp gain. You sent it to the tape recorder. You didn't turn it down and crank the mic preamp way the hell up to get distortion. I mean, you could, but for the most part, you didn't. All those classic songs you talk about, those weren't operated in the nonlinear range of the mic preamp. Let's see, right mic, right placement, decent preamp and converters, which most units these days have. These guys keep talking about converters. How much you want to bet if we ABX tested these guys, nobody would be able to tell the difference between one modern converter and another. So here comes somebody. So how many times do we say this one? Every time somebody talks about mic preamps and how they have character, I hate that thing all about character and mic preamps. They always say this, but they never come up with measurements. You know who came up with measurements? Me. I measure these things and show that they sound exactly the same. Exactly. Until you get into the nonlinear side, maybe. And that's not always all that true either. So this guy says, in my opinion, a good pre outweighs the mic. SM57 is not an expensive mic, and many hate them, yet plug it into a Neve or API and you achieve rock. No. If you achieve rock by plugging into a Neve, or you achieve rock by plugging into an API, you achieve rock by plugging into a Mackie. Sorry. And I will bet you, whatever you want to bet, that you won't be able to ABX between them. So the original poster, I think it's him, said, do you think that the Steinberg UR22 has decent preamp and converters? It's hard to believe that my $100 interface is not that much worse than an Apollo Twin Duo, for example. I'd say it's better because I don't trust UA. So I would say, no, it's not that much worse. It's probably better. Let's see. Okay. I like this guy's answer. If you don't know what you're doing, it's easy to get a bad recording with either. If you're like me, who knows just enough to be dangerous and are willing to take the time to blindly experiment until you do get a good sound, I would say the better mic is the better investment. Yeah, not bad. Let's see. So this other guy, when I first started, all I had was cheap pre's and cheap mics and nothing to compare it to. The pre started to get better, and then I realized you could do a lot more with an expensive pre. And if the cheap mic is solid and somewhat decent, you're better off expensive pre, cheap mic. Back then, 20 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. The earlier Behringer stuff had some sterile, thin-sounding pre's. Certain Alesis and Focusrite gear sounded exactly the same and transparent. Some of the Motu gear had a spike, making it a bit right on the high end. Remember, I've tested most of this stuff. In fact, the ADA 8000, whatever, the much maligned one, actually tests pretty well. I'm still using cheap mics with great success. I love my real 57. However, for some reason, the clone sounds better on snare, less bowing, more attack and bottom end. So, yeah, I don't know. Somebody else. Interface makes almost no difference. They all use the same cheap converters until you get to the really expensive ones anyway. Don't waste your money. And even if you get the really expensive ones, I'm not convinced they're going to sound any better. Let's see. Hold on. I think I got people babbling at me. Give me 1 second here. Oh, yeah. Hey. Okay. Let's see. Don't get me wrong, going from a $150 interface to an $800 interface, there are likely better pre's and converters, maybe. Or I'd hope there were. Yeah. See, when you go to measure this stuff, you find out that that might not be true. But you're also getting a sleeker box, more IOs, and a DAW and plugin suite, maybe. Plus the engineering that goes into those plugins, maybe. But once you figure in those other features, how much better are the converters over a box dedicated just to AD conversion? Honestly, I don't think they're going to matter much either way. Okay. Oh, can't post to some channels. Why is that? Okay. Okay. Somebody else says, put it this way, if your recordings are disappointing to you in some way and can only be fixed by buying better gear, you'd better be some kind of magical recordist. For the vast majority of people, the gear ain't the problem. If your interface and mics function properly, don't waste your money and invest more time into your craft. If you're going to do anything to tackle sound quality, acoustically treat your studio space. It'll have orders of magnitude more impact than a different interface. Yes. Let's see. See, a lot of people are talking about using these mic pre's in nonlinear modes. I barely ever see anybody do that. I mean, you could do it for a special effect or whatever, but that's not how you're using the gear. I mean, get real. Maybe if you're White Stripes or something, but you know, that just do people say that's the sound they're after? Let's see. Yeah, somebody else modders mentions a test on where on GS, right? Website dedicated to recording where a lot of pros couldn't distinguish between a mix printed through a Behringer and a 2500 plus Lynx Hilo. Bottom line, there's nothing wrong with your Behringer, and unless you need features that it doesn't have, I'd spend your money elsewhere. Yep. There's a reason all these interface companies like UAD are getting into the plugin game. They can't differentiate on sound quality anymore. Let's see. So, but then he goes and says, most pros have some good character pre's, EQs, compressors, and wide selection of mics for tracking. I don't know that they have character pre's. They may think they do, but since they can't tell the difference between them either, I don't think... yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Where are we going here? I like this guy. Bear in mind, to get the best out of an expensive mic, it's going to depend a lot on your recording space. Hey, the acoustics of a space are going to make a world of difference. If you move a mic, your 57 on your 412, if you move that a degree, that is a way bigger difference than every single mic preamp out there. I mean, it's just huge what that difference is. So, take it with a grain of salt. So they say the character pre is a classic example. You need to be at a certain level of skill before you really know what one can bring to the table. I don't think that's true. I don't think you, even no matter how much skill you think you have, you're not going to know the difference between that mic preamp. I mean, sure, if you overdrive them, maybe, but let's see what else we got. Mic placement will have more of an effect on the sound than anything. Proper placement equals good sound. Yeah. I've heard horrible guitar tones using high-end gear, mostly due to mic preamp. I'm guilty of that. Yes, the preamp will add some color, but not enough to polish a turd. I don't think it will. I don't think it'll add any color. I'm sorry. You guys always say that, but you always say it without any evidence. Let's see. Somebody else. It's headroom, not quality of the preamps. Within the scope of the interfaces, you will not hear much of any difference until you push the preamp. I don't know if you will then either. So I just said competent drivers, competent mic. I like that word from Ethan Weiner when you just said competent, a good interface in 906 always works. Okay. See, this is just, it's claims. It's always claims. Let's see if we got anything. This guy got an RME. See, I like the RME for the drivers. I don't know about the sound. In fact, I think my RME that I'm running right now doesn't have any analog at all. It's all ADAT ins and outs, except for it's got one set of headphone outs that I use once in a while. Actually using it more lately. Maybe I got to look at that SonarWorks thing, actually. But anyway, so that's this whole thing about, what do you... there's so many claims out there, but don't kill yourself. If you got a decent mic and you got a regular interface with ASIO drivers and stuff, it's not going to be that stuff that's holding you back. As long as you got enough channels for what you need to do. If you need to record a drum set and you only got a 2-channel interface, you might have some trouble. I mean, sure, people do crazy things, but I would rather you had a bigger interface for something like that. But it's going to have the same mic preamps as the smaller one for the most part. Okay, so let's go on from here. This thing, I keep getting ads from this. This is just one of them. This one says for Grow the Show, and it's like all these ads targeting me on Facebook, and I'm sure targeting other people. And he talks about how his podcast, he'll tell you how to make his podcast do incredible things. I did this thing where I ended up, my podcast audience grows 35% every month. That means it doubles every 3 months. Since then, I started coaching others too, and my podcasting students are growing their download number 60% to 100% per month. And so you go sign up in this free, on-demand masterclass and go check out this page. And so, of course, I had to ask, which podcast is this that's grown by that much? Where's the audience thing? And it's funny, but my comments aren't on here anymore. So I had to put it on there again. Which podcast is that with all this growth? And so far I've gotten crickets, So, there's all these hype things. It's just like the guys telling you they're going to teach you how to mix guitars or mix records or whatever. And it's just like this hype thing. Here's a free course, sign up. And then it's like a bait and switch. Really, so much of what we do today, especially in audio engineering, I don't know if you guys know what, have you ever heard of the timeshare breakfast or the timeshare lunch? Hey, come to this free lunch and we're just going to talk to you about an exciting opportunity. And they get you involved in this timeshare, Usually it's a scam, but I mean, there really is a timeshare, but you'd probably be better off spending your money a different way, and you can't really get out of it very easy. It is very much the bait and switch pitch, right? They get you in with some free thing, and then they upsell you on a bunch of nonsense that, half the time these guys don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Like you watch how many recording programs in schools have you seen that the guys never actually recorded a band in their life? So I don't know. Maybe this guy has a huge podcast, but who knows? Give me some facts. Let me look up where it's like that. What's that lady that's on everybody telling you how to get way more listeners to your songs and stuff, and then you go and look at her thing. Nobody's ever heard of her. Get out of here. Oh, okay. So here's a good one. Some of you guys know I use Exciter from Audio Assault. It's my favorite Mutt Lang type of plugin. They've made a version 2 that has like a spectrum analyzer thing on it. I just barely started using it, so I'm not sure if there's really a bunch of differences with what the sound can do, but you got piles of types of oversampling on it now. And like I said, it has a spectrum analyzer display, which is pretty cool. Let's see what else. So yeah, go to Audio Assault. They always have, it says right now there's some kind of sale, so it's $10. Yeah, go get it. It's $10. No brainer. And then, if you like all his amplifier plugins and stuff, he's got piles of them on there too. So go check it out. It's Audio Assault. It's stuff I really love. I use Exciter on everything. Glenn, Spectre Sound Studios, Glenn Fricker made a video on the Tonewood Challenge. And let me read you the description here. Is a solid body electric guitar's overall sound affected by the wood it's made of? How many times have we talked about that on this show, right? We had 2 guitars built exactly the same way. The only difference being the wood. Is there any noticeable difference? You tell me. And so I'm sure he's getting his share of hate. So I told him that. Now you're in my world. Good luck with that. I got in a big old fight about this a while back, and somebody, I don't know if it's the Music Is Win guy directly talking to me or somebody linking me their stuff, but the Music Is Win channel had he made an argument for Tonewood, and his argument was, and then he puts this video up of Paul Reed Smith talking about Tonewood. Now, they didn't give any evidence. He just said, hey, of course wood makes a difference to the guitar tone. That was the argument. It was argument by nuh-uh. So, yeah, not much. And I guess I wasn't the only one that completely lost respect for Music Is Win on that one, right? But yeah, that was what a chode, man. That was terrible. But you can go watch this video. It's up at Glenn's site on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, the Tonewood Challenge. All right. And had a couple Quora questions. Let's see. What makes a good bass guitar? I don't know. I'll tell you what, for recording, I want a guitar that can be intonated. I want one that doesn't buzz. I want one that's playable. I want, so it's probably better have a truss rod on it. Lots of people are using those uke basses now, though, so who knows? Those are decent. You would think because of how small they are, they're going to have all kinds of intonation problems, but I see people using them constantly on recordings lately, so I kind of got to shut up. I just say, let's make sure it's not buzzing more than you want it. The electronics aren't bad. It's not making noises it doesn't need to make. And like I said, you can tune it and you can intonate it. How does it stay in tune? If not, throw away those tuners, get some real tuners. Make sure the truss rod's good so it stays in place. That's about it. Make sure it makes the sounds you want. How important is string muting when playing the bass? I don't know about when playing the bass, but I know about when recording the bass. Generally, I don't want to hear sounds that aren't supposed to be there. So if you watch me play an electric guitar, but I'm playing with a lot more gain and stuff, usually, I have my fingers all over the strings. I'm constantly muting. If I have to, I'm putting napkins or fluffy things all over the guitar to shut up strings that I'm not using. If we're not doing any open strings, to definitely put one of those hair scrunchy looking things on the strings to shut them up. So yeah, muting is extremely important. Mud is your enemy when you're recording and mixing. To me, it's one of my biggest enemies. Anyways, So I definitely would say that muting the notes that you don't want, extremely important. Does phantom power improve condenser microphone's audio? Okay. If your condenser microphone isn't battery powered or doesn't have some kind of external power supply, it relies on phantom power in order to work. So it drastically improves the condenser microphone's audio, because if you don't have power to your microphone, you're not going to get any audio at all. But so yeah, if you got a condenser mic, you need phantom power, or you need some kind of power supply for it. Okay, what makes a particular acoustic guitar a good one to record with? So again, something you can intonate, which is hard on acoustics, right? Because they usually have fixed saddles, which sucks. Lots of times they don't have truss rods, so the neck might be terrible. But the main thing that I'm looking out for is buzzes. Buzzes on acoustics are terrible, especially if they're going to do an electric acoustic. But hopefully they're micing it. That's kind of my last bastion of actually having to mic everything nowadays, is I still mic acoustics. But let's hope it's not buzzy. Buzzing is awful. And a lot of times it's a player's technique, but there are guitars that are going to buzz no matter what. And that doesn't make a good guitar for recording to me. Again, though, the intonation is going to be critical, and you got to make sure that you really can't change the size of strings once you have the intonation right, or you got to go figure out a way to get it set again. So that's the biggie to me, is no noises, no buzzes, and good intonation and tuning, and good luck with that. And that is it for this week. And I'm going to go to the ride out tomorrow night, and I'll see you guys next week.